The core thing in any education or training is actually emotion. Emotion governs all of learning, all of memory, and all of your capacity to do it. How is that? Well, if anything feels bad in the environment, if anything gives you a fight or flight response, what your body is going to want to do is shut down everything that is mental, as in the neocortex bit right there, the thinking part of the brain, the bit that goes, is this right? Is this actually quite the truth of what's happening? How do I do this? What is going on? What is this thing I'm looking at? That stops. And instead, your body fires up the adrenal system and gets ready for the full-on flight or fright response. Fight or fright? So anyway, if you're going into a education environment or training session and something trips your fight or flight response, you ain't going to learn nothing, or it's going to be very slow, or it's going to be extremely painful to get through and you'll get hardly any efficiency out of it and it'll almost be a complete and utter waste of time. So why bother? So the key to education is to get the emotional landscape of what you're doing completely correct. And the reason I flag this up right at the very start of things is so that we can be aware of it. And in the next video that's coming along, bearing in mind that the emotional landscape governs all of learning, and it needs to be a positive one, otherwise you're going to reject it. Well, once you know that, the next videos are going to make sense. Another thing to be aware of with any kind of education or training is memory. There's three kinds of memory. One is the now moment, which is roughly about a second or so of perception, which is rather obvious. Next one to understand is short-term memory, lasts roughly about 30 seconds. So if somebody walks up to you and introduces themselves with their name, oh, hello, Brian, how are you? Yeah, great. 30 seconds pass, you've met a couple of other people, and you may not remember poor Brian's name, because short-term memory has evaporated. It can linger if you recite it over and over for roughly about 2 weeks, which is the cramming period for exams or so. But after that, you'll probably completely and totally forget everything outside of that 2-week time frame. Stuff that you don't forget is long-term memory. And long-term memory is the particularly interesting aspect of all of this business, because there's a barrier right in front of long-term memory to filter out all the stuff that you don't actually want in there. So anything that feels bad will not make it through this barrier. So if there's any judgment, any unnatural things like being told to be quiet or sit down for a very long time, do something you don't like, or do it in a way that makes you feel bad, this barrier is going to come up. It's going, no, long-term memory, no, not letting it in. I would wager that everyone in the country has had some kind of language lessons or something like that during their time. You may have had several years worth of, say, French in school. How many people can speak fluent French in this country, or German, or whatever? Few. Hardly any. Maybe a couple of phrases have managed to get through, but considering most people have had a few years of language education, all we can really speak is English in the UK. So what's going on? Barrier comes up. Nope, not letting it in. So you've looked at the textbooks, you've done all the speaking stuff, you had a bunch of exams and things. If you haven't used it on holiday or in an aspect, something like that, then the chances are you've forgotten the entire lot. So that's really, 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 really important to know that long-term memory is a big barrier in front of it, and any negative emotion associated with information coming in is going to prevent it from getting through. That is going to inform our entire strategy on this entire thing. So in the next sort of background thing that I'm going to talk about, bear this in mind, that emotion motivates and emotion governs learning. Captain's Log Additional, if you want to look at a more detailed version of what I've just gone on about, as in the background sources for it, you can read about it on the blog. There's going to be a blog post on it, which is going to be more of an essay kind of thing, to talk about the technical stuff and reference where this background materials come from. And also I'll talk about it more at length on the podcast, where I'll go into examples and stuff like that. But if this is enough and you think, yeah, that's great, yeah, thanks, Paul, yeah, that makes sense, fantastic. There's the usual buttons underneath this thing, plus the link to the email list if you want to receive stuff off me every now and again. This is going to be interesting and good, and we'll go, oh, wow, I never realized that. That's fantastic. It's the entire reason I'm here, to do stuff like that. So sign up if you like, press all the buttons, and have a great day.